So Omidyar Network is a bit of an interesting organization. I'll give you the quick 2-minute summary of Omidyar Network, and then I'll say a few words about what we think about affordable healthcare and some of the activities that we are engaged in as far as affordable healthcare is concerned. But the Omidyar, can everyone hear me? Can you all hear me at the back? Is that okay? So the Omidyar Network was started in 2004 by Pam and Pierre Omidyar. Pierre Omidyar is the founder and still chairperson of eBay, the internet auction firm. Just a little known factoid, Facebook has been a lot in the news and its big IPO and so on. So people think of Facebook as being, an 800-pound gorilla and other companies as being much smaller. But the reality is that eBay today, in terms of market cap, is still larger than Facebook. So Facebook has a market cap of about $55 billion, but eBay has still a market cap of $65 billion. So it was, obviously a tremendous success. For Pierre. Pierre, in fact, wrote the code for eBay in his spare bedroom over Labor Day weekend in 1995. And so between 1995 and now, you can see what a wonderful institution he and the rest of the team at eBay have built, which is a $65 billion market cap company. But as Pam and Pierre, realized that they had been so successful, they had created this tremendous wealth for themselves, they began to think very hard about how to use the wealth, and they viewed themselves very much as trustees of the wealth as opposed to actually owning the wealth themselves. And they began to think about how they could use that wealth for the betterment of humanity. And exactly as Sanjeev said, as they began to think about how they could make a difference in the world, they realized, and in many ways because of the eBay experience, they realized that for-profit companies could have perhaps even more social impact than non-profits. So as philanthropists, as they began to think about how they could use their wealth for the betterment of humanity, their thinking was, why should we just restrict ourselves only on the non-profit side? Now, some of the largest foundations in the world, whether it's the Rockefeller Foundation or the Gates Foundation and so on, are set up as foundations, and they largely do work with non-profits. But Omidyar Network is very unique because we specifically have used the term network, not foundation, because we have an LLP on the one hand, which allows us to make for-profit investments. We're just like a venture capital firm. And on the other hand, we have a foundation that allows us to do non-profit grant making. So over the last 8 years, as we've done this, both investing on the venture capital for-profit side, as well as non-profit grant making, in the last 8 years, globally, Omidyar Network has already deployed more than $600 million in capital. And through a variety of other philanthropic institutions, Pam and Pierre have already deployed more than $1 billion of capital. So they are one of the most active philanthropists in the world now. In fact, they're still very young, so they're only 44 even now. And in fact, we were just looking at some numbers, and it seems like they're the youngest people to have given away $1 billion, which is quite remarkable. So wonderful people. They're very dedicated and committed to India. They come every year. They love India. They are very focused on seeing what they can do to help India as well. And as part of that, of course, healthcare is a very important area for them. So as I said, we've done about $600 million of capital deployed. In India alone, of the $600 million, we've done over $100 million. And we typically are 50-50 between for-profit and non-profit. In India, on the other hand, between for-profit and non-profit, the split is a little bit different. We are more like 75% for-profit and 25% non-profit, simply because of the investment opportunities that we've seen. Now, as we begin to deploy our capital and we think of different sectors, we've been very active globally in financial inclusion. In fact, as far as microfinance is concerned, the Omidyars have put more than $300 million to work in microfinance alone and seen tremendous success there. We are still large investors in SKS, for instance. But as we've looked at other sectors, whether it's consumer internet and mobile, whether it's education, one of the sectors that we've gotten very interested in, because we believe the way we look at these kinds of investments can make a big difference, is in healthcare. So healthcare, particularly as Jajit pointed out, affordable healthcare for the base of the pyramid is something that's become a real priority for us. And we are experimenting with a variety of approaches, specifically in India, because this is where we think that this approach could actually make sense. So let me spend a few minutes just talking about that approach, and if anybody has any questions, we'll just keep them for a later session because we are running a little tight as far as time is concerned right now. But essentially our approach, because we can do both for-profit investing as well as non-profit grant making, is very much a sector-based approach, which is why it's so important to have you all here and talk to you about all the elements of the sector, whether it's government, whether it is the private sector, whether it's non-profits. Everybody has to come together. And so it's, as we think about our work, it's not just about growing individual firms. The individual firms are very important. If you can find great winners, great home runs, wonderful companies that can scale, you can have huge social impact. But if you can get the sector itself to take off, if you can get affordable healthcare to really become something very substantial, serving all of India's base of the pyramid population, it can be very, very vital and important. Mr. Mara is coming in. So, as I said, the sector-based approach is crucially important. And we believe that if we work with sectors, morning, Mr. Mara, we'll be out in a second. So this, as I said, the sector-based approach is very important, and what we try to do is we try to work on lifting up the entire sector, and if we can change the shape of the curve, if you will, bend the curve so that the sector really takes off, that's where it makes all the difference. And that's really what today is all about, which is just like in microfinance. As I said, in microfinance, the Omidyar network and the Omidyars have put more than $300 million to work. So just like in microfinance, we were able to change the trajectory of the sector itself, switch it from being something, which is more the money lender industry, which is small, monopolized, inequitable, and so on. And instead, we can create an entire sector, the microfinance sector, where the entire sector takes off and hundreds of millions of people have access to microcredit and micro savings. That's what makes the difference. And that's really what we would like to be able to do in affordable healthcare also. So that's really is our hope, but that can only happen if all of you, come together, coordinate, work together to really develop the sector. And as we go through our dialogue today and our discussions today, we'll see where the bottlenecks are, where are the challenges in the sector, where coordinated collective action can really enable the entire sector in India to take off. There are real bottlenecks, as we've found, as we've discussed it with all of you. So I think if we can spend time today on that, that would be very valuable.